Good day, my people, and welcome to Sit, Sip, and Chat. Now, let's continue the journey. Hello, my people, and welcome to Sit, Sip, and Chat, where I sit with different persons in the community. We have a chat while we have a sip or two of whatever is in our glass. Feel free, you can go ahead and have a sip as well while we go through our chat. My name is Glenda York of GCY Initiative, and I am your host. And today we will be talking to John Sandiford of Antonio Media. Now, today we're doing things a bit differently. This sit and chat happened last year in 2022, but it was more of a chat and less sipping. But I did have a conversation with John about his company, where he started, and how he got to where he is. John Sandiford started in music as a member of Underground Rebels, or UGR, while he was going to school at St. Dominic High School. Now he is the owner of Antonio Media, experts and trusted partners in crafting exceptional user experience and user interface designs, or UX and UI designs, for digital products. He's the co-founder of Rebuild St. Martin, a nonprofit organization created after the passing of Hurricane Irma to raise awareness of the impact of the hurricane on the island. And most recently, he's also a contributor to entrepreneurship on the island, as he is an active partner with the Smile event organized by the St. Martin Hospitality and Trade Association, or the SHTA. And like I mentioned, he was recently awarded the Islandpreneur of the Year by Dr. Ife Badajo of Islandpreneur. But before I show you guys the chat that I had with John, we're first gonna talk about where we are today. We are again at the SXM Crazy Beach Bar and Restaurant in Great Bay. We are located on Front Street, number 133. They're open every day for breakfast and lunch, and they host karaoke every Thursday nights from 7 to 11 p.m. And with that, let's go into my chat with John.
All right, so my name is John A.M. Sandiford. Born on this beautiful island, Sunshine City, St. Martin. And I've been living in the Netherlands now for almost the past 20 years. It's gonna be 19 in August. And I'm an entrepreneur slash UX UI designer slash guess I can also say a bit of a philanthropist slash many other things.
Okay. How was your transition moving from St. Martin to the Netherlands?
So I was born here. I left St. Martin when I was 3, about to turn 4 years old. Lived in the Netherlands at that time till I was about 11 years old. So I had my foundational primary school education mainly in the Netherlands. When I moved back to St. Martin, I did my final year of primary school at Sister Magda. So I came back here when I was 11 in '96. And from there I also spent some time in Dominica. For 2.5 years I lived over there. Attended the Dominica Grammar School. So that was another big transition from mainly education in Dutch to then complete education in English. And then after 2.5 years I came back to St. Martin and finished high school here and went to St. Dominic High. So I'm maybe answering a different question than the initial question. So that's a bit of the background to then show that the transition to Holland, it was there were certain challenges, but at the same time it wasn't completely devastating or detrimental because I already spent part of my childhood there. But definitely your teenage years form you, and during my teens I definitely got formed into a regular islander.
So then when you went back to Holland, then you still had to readjust to the cold and the cultural differences and all of that?
Yeah. So readjusting to the cold, readjusting to the cultural differences. That was in 2003, so everything we wore back then was 5X, 6X, 4X. I mean, I'm a tall guy, but XL, double XL is still a more fitted fit than the 4Xs and 5Xs I used to wear back then. So definitely showing up to class dressed like that gave certain type of eyes. Just regular going out, etc. So there were definitely some readjustments. But at the same time, those were fun times. The parties back then were amazing. Just music in general, I believe, was better. Now I'm really starting to sound like an old guy. Like, music in my time was better. Our youngsters listening to crap. But I kind of do feel that way. I mean, there is still some good music being released today, and I do have a very strong love for music, and music is always some part of my life. But still, like, the overall atmosphere in music, I do find was better in those days.
Okay. So you provided the perfect segue for me. So you were a musician in your teen years, going to St. Dominic, because I knew you when you were part of the group. I can't remember the name of the
Underground
group.
Rebels?
Yes, UGR.
Oh, wow.
Because Amari went to Academy. He switched over to Academy, so I knew him when he went to Academy, and I knew Lee from elementary school, and then...
So you went to St. Dominic Elementary?
I went to Academy.
Ah, okay.
I think like kindergarten, like really early on.
Yeah.
And then he switched over to St. Dominic, but I remembered him when I saw him, and I was... Yeah. So then I remember when you guys were UGR, specifically because of Mari, so then I knew, I paid attention more because I had a friend that was also part of it.
Yeah.
So you were a performer. That was the goal, was to progress as a performer. What switched you from performer to a business person? Where did the mind shift occur, and what caused it?
So the dream, I think even as a little kid, I really loved music. I remember one of my first memories is turning 4 and dancing to Michael Jackson music in the living room. That's one of my earliest memories. And so when I left St. Martin, it was definitely the goal to continue to excel in that. But being as it made a home I come from, they also preach that school is important. So my official goal for leaving St. Martin was to go to college, which I went. But I quickly realized what I was studying wasn't really a good fit for me. Definitely in those days, I mean, the website was super crappy, so the information was very vague, and people are like, yeah, you're already good at music, so don't go study music, go do a plan B. Now I would give kids maybe slightly different advice. So I went into information technology and quickly realized that wasn't a good fit for me, and started looking around into different studies, and came across ICT media design. And ICT media design then felt more like a natural fit because I would learn design skills there, even a little bit of videography. So I thought to myself, oh wow, well, I can't pay anyone to do my artwork or my website or my videos, but I can learn to do them myself. So making that switch, I was already dabbling into these different things, but then now I could combine it with school, because even some of my school projects, I would pitch like, okay, I want to do this music video and submit it as a school project. And then I shot one of the first like professional videos on the island back in 2005 at Port de Plaisance. And I taught myself to video edit. Then we had that first version of the edit that then went over to the professionals to give it the flares and the color correction and really make it pop. So that was I got a hookup. It was about 300 euros, which felt like a lot of money back then as a student. But made that happen. Then eventually had to pay another 75 or 100 to get it on. I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, but for lack of memory, let's just say Betamax tape. It had to get on some special format in order for it to get on the television in the Netherlands. And at the time, You had the Box, which was sort of like the urban station.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Yeah, so well, Rockin' Vibes, they had a couple videos out on it back then with Ziggy Ricardo. I think back then his name was just Ziggy. So there was a sort of a movement happening and a flow happening, and me living down south in the Netherlands in Eindhoven, I was always into technology. So the technology also allowed me to then gather up some of the equipment to create a studio in my student apartment, to record my own music. At the same time, I was working with another guy that had a more professional setup to then record the more professional stuff. So we were doing mixtapes in my studio and then the more professional stuff over there. And eventually I also had other artists working with me on the CAP records. So what you already kind of see in form here is, while I was an artist and a performer, I was also the business guy behind it. Teaching myself the craft in order to promote the music. So creating the whole look and feel around things was, I was juggling 100 million balls at the same time. And that kind of went on throughout my college time. And there's a couple highlights in the journey. One of them being the performance on BET back in 2009. And that was also a networking moment that happened August Monday in St. Martin with a couple bottles of, I won't say on camera. And yeah, so throughout that journey, things kind of went like this. While I was focusing on music and things were starting to progress there, build some momentum, that was going up. And then there was less focus on school. And then like, shit, I gotta get my grades up because still need to pass this stuff eventually. And then I would focus on school, and then I would lose momentum on the music. And then it's like this. So it was a constant ping pong effect. And after I did my first internship, also I did it here on the island, I saw how my design skills, where I chose that study just to support my musical journey, actually was translating into real business. And also the opportunities that were granted to me there and the projects that I did. It allowed me to see that, these skills can actually be used for legitimate business. And it's crazy how you focus on it from one point of view, but then the other point of view just sort of sneaks up and shows you that, well, you're actually more valuable than you think. So that gave me my first introduction into, let's say, the business side of things. And then I continued to grow that a bit more from 2008 towards 2010 when I finally graduated. And made the decision that I was going to go into business, and I would pause the music briefly to focus on this, because I knew that focusing on both, then there's no focus. Yeah. You can only focus on one thing at a time. Even though up to this day I still focus on multiple things, but I'm like, okay, 80% in the core, 80 to 90% in the core, and then 10 to 20 can be focused on other things to keep life interesting. So yeah, that's how the transition sort of really happened, because I decided at that moment to pause music, focus on the business. And once I started focusing 100% on one thing is when I started to see things really take off. What I always like to tell people in that first year, guess how much money I made in my first year of business?
300 euros.
Oh wow, that's one of the lowest guesses I had so far. It was about 3,000.
Oh, okay. I was like, which way is gonna go?
But for the year, so that's not for a month.
Okay, I got you.
That's not for a month. So if you divide up the 3,000 by a year, then it's less than 300 bucks. And yeah, it's quite different today.
I imagine so.
And now we're gonna take a quick sip break. I'm going to have another sip of my rum punch. You have a sip of whatever it is that you're drinking, and we'll be right back with our conversation with John.
Qu'est-ce que tu fais là? Qu'est-ce que tu fais là?
But sorry, no sir. They got this game tonight and I can't miss it. Me and my boy, we gotta watch the game, you know. So I bringing this in. You check? Alright, let me watch your leg down. Watch your leg.
Sir, sorry. Why so difficult? Look, I'm watching TV here on my phone with the Tell TV Plus app. You really gotta upgrade.
Okay, so miss, tell me about the Tell TV Plus. I hear about this.
Okay, so once you apply for Tell TV Plus,
Okay.
you can enjoy it anytime on the go.
Anytime.
Anytime.
On the go?
On the go, you simply download the app, log into your account at any time, sit back and enjoy. You will never have to miss your match.
Yo, bus driver, take me back to tell him now, please.
And we're back. We're gonna wrap up this conversation with John, where he's gonna explain a bit more about his journey to where he was at the time of our conversation. And I hope you guys enjoy it.
So then the music is still technically on pause?
It's beyond on pause. It's stopped and it's put in the freezer. It's not buried because to say it's buried is like there's no wink of a door that can potentially open in the future. So I won't ever close the door on it
Still
fully.
there, but there's other focuses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, enough. It happens. So that well, you kind of answered already, but what inspired Antonio Media? Antonio Media.
Yeah.
Saying it correctly. I feel like I'm saying it wrong.
No, you're saying it
So
perfectly.
You transitioned. We focused 100% on what it is that we wanted to do. So then, with Antonio Media, explain exactly the purpose of Antonio Media, where you started to where you are now.
Okay. Maybe I even need to give a little bit more highlights of the music part, because
Sure.
as we talk, then more things connect again. So around 2000, between 2007 and 2009, things started to progress in music at different moments. But again, the juggling didn't allow me to fully grasp the momentum in the moments that it happened. But I did spend some time in New York. I even ended up in a few record companies' offices. At the time, well, for the older folks, well, more from my generation, they might remember the song "This Is Why I'm Hot."
Yeah.
So the guy that signed him, I was actually in a meeting with him back then. And I got a couple contracts slide in front of my nose to sign here, and then we'll make this and that happen for you. Sent those over back home, and then immediately got the reply, "Do not sign," because basically it was more like one of those B2K kind of contracts, the ones where even to this day they probably would be able to claim a stake in Antonio Media. So those are some of the parts of the music industry that people, the average person outside doesn't really know, that a lot of times when you sign to these record companies, the record companies is a business.
Yeah.
So, and the artist is the product. So you as a human being become a product of the record company. You remember there's that famous clip from TLC that they just won, I don't know how many Grammys.
And they were broke.
And they were broke, and they were selling 10 million records, and people were like, how can you be broke selling all that stuff? Well, it comes down to the contracts. And many people from those type of neighborhoods in the US, someone comes and say, hey, I can change your life, sign here, and they just sign without having the background knowledge or anyone in their family that can basically dissect and go through these stuff. Yeah, so there were a couple different things that happened around that time. Also, I always been a student of life in general. So anything that I dive into, then I look for the greats in that space and I start to study them. So I look towards, I was a big fan of Eminem growing up. and at that time, Jay-Z, Kanye, Nas, Mobb Deep, these were the guys I was really looking up to. But then as I grew and started to become more of an adult, and I started like analyzing their lives, and I was like, yeah, outside of Jay-Z, everyone else had a whole lot of drama going on. There was a whole lot of money in the bank, but a whole lot of drama in their lives specifically. And I already started to feel certain degrees of that drama just here on the island, because as you start to make certain steps and things are still very early and no one else is making similar type of steps, there was a different wave of bad energy, so to speak. And I think the combination of everything just said, you know what, fall back for a minute, quiet down, exit the spotlight, focus on some other things, and then see what, how, and if you want to get back to this. So that was really also part of the transition. So now we might have to come back to the question that you just asked me, because this was completely off topic.
No problem. Antonio Media, from conception to now.
Yeah. So from conception, what I started doing is graphic design. So it was more like creating logos and posters and a website here or there. After my first year of working from home, I found I connected with actually an old professor of mine, and he asked me how it was going, and like, I started my own company, like super proud. He's like, okay, where are you located? Yeah, and spare bedroom at home. He's like, oh, okay, how's that going? I'm like, well, maybe not so great, but I want to get out there. But then when I look at these rent prices, I can't afford none of that. Whatever I'm doing now, I can barely afford rent for my house, so much less for going out there. And he said, well, we actually have this co-working space, come and check it out. So I went and checked it out. It was 90 euros a month, and I remember at the time thinking, okay, this is a bit this is maybe a bit much of a commitment, but hey, I feel like this is the right step. I got to do it. Now I would laugh at that type of pricing, but that was the feeling and the sentiment at the time, definitely when you're starting out. So entering that co-working space was definitely something that changed the course of my entrepreneur mind and mindset, because there was a lot of collaboration there. So we were just so this is like 2011. 2008 you had the financial crisis in the States. It didn't hit Europe until 2011, 2012. So by that time everyone was saying crisis, and it was allemaal beter vroeger, so that means it was all better before. And so a lot of companies were downscaling, so a lot of people were ending up on the streets, and then a lot of those people are professionals, have skills, so then they just starting up sole proprietorships. But then they also don't want to be working from home, so they were looking for office space. And then you had an environment where there were like at least 20-25 companies in this space working on all their own projects, but at the same time collaborating on bigger projects together. And being in that environment, any project that someone also could have sent over my way, if it was $200 that I earned on it, hey, that's another $200 towards setting up my own thing. And from there, things is where it really started to grow. Also, like gaining more project management skills, gaining knowledge about different softwares that you can use to help manage your projects, finding out about different courses that you could take. The networking part was super huge. I think between 2012 and 2015, 7 out of 10 events happening in the city, you would see my face there, that after a while certain people would be like, and you're just everywhere, right? Like, yo, yes. Because in the early days when I went up, and this may be a good one for the students, in between 2003 to about 2007, so the first 4 years, I wasn't really mingling with too many people outside of my inner circle. and not really mingling with too many people outside of, let's say, the St. Martin crowds. And then from 2000 and in 2006, 7 beyond, then I started mingling with practically everyone else except for the St. Martin crowds. The St. Martin crowds it wasn't crowds, it was then like my close people. So only the people that was really close in my vicinity I would still really have a lot of contact with, and everyone else I just started to mingle with like-minded people, those that had similar interests. And the networking part, because if you're starting a business in an unknown country, the blood of business, so humans can't exist without blood flowing through their veins, and the blood of business is your network. So essentially, you need to build and establish and maintain a great network in order to continue to grow your business. And so this applies primarily, let's say, to services businesses and consultancies. But I could also imagine within products, there'll be similar aspects, because you need good relationships with suppliers and subcontractors and stores that are going to house your goods, etc. So it always comes down to good network.
And you have how many employees right now?
So right now, Antonio Media, it's 4 of us, including myself. At different times, we were maybe up to 7, including a couple interns. During the course of the pandemic, which obviously rattled every industry, we weren't affected that much financially, but definitely it just made me a little bit more cautious, because I remember the stories of those more experienced entrepreneurs when I first started, because I started my business in the middle of a financial crisis. So all I knew was to and coming from St. Martin, you already have a certain hustler's mentality. Just maybe a tad bit more cautious. So we're probably going to be expanding a bit cautiously over the course of the next year or so.
And that's it, my people. That is the conversation that I had with John Sandiford of Antonio Media. And I hope you guys join us again next week as we sit, sip, and chat with someone else. Until the next one.